Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 11th Planning Board agenda for the Braintree Planning Board. Welcome. The meeting is being shown on Beld as well as obviously live in this room. As we usually do, we start with our old new business at 7 p.m. and then at 7:15 we'll start our public hearings. And so with that, the first item with our old new business, actually I'll go to the last item on the old new business, the approval of meeting minutes. Members, we've had two meeting minutes typed up, April 9th and May 14th, 2024. And did anyone have any questions with the minutes? All right. With those, I'll just take a motion to approve those 2 minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay. Motion by Member Sterlazzi, seconded by Member Grove. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right. Now we'll move on to what's listed as the first item on the old new business. We have a request for minor modification for 2-10 Commercial Street, and that's Planning Board File 12-02. And Director Santucci-Razzi, do you have any comments on that at this point, or do you want me to ask the applicant to speak first?
I think you can open it with the applicant. I did do a quick staff report, including Mr. Saras's request, the regulating conditions that we're looking to modify, as well as his drawings, and that's it.
Okay, great. All right, good evening.
How are you?
Good, thank you. If you could just give your name.
Harry Saris. I'm representing S&H Realty Trust.
Okay, thank you. And you want to just go ahead and give us an overview of what the request is?
We originally installed a panel system, a PVC panel system on the building. The install wasn't done correctly. The panels started to fail. As each year passed, they failed more and more. We decided to switch them to a brick instead of the paneling system. We feel that it would fit in with the landing a lot better. Everybody down there has gone to the brick. Aesthetically, it looks a lot better. A little bit more maintenance-free. It'll hold up to the weather a lot more than the paneling system that we previously put on. So we went ahead and filed a permit with building, which they approved, not knowing that we had to come in front of the board. Melissa got a hold of me, so we did our homework. We did everything we needed to get into the planning board. So here we are today, looking to continue our project.
Thank you. And I appreciate with the updated information that you submitted, taking care to take a look at the neighborhood and mix with that also.
Yep.
Are there any members that have any questions on this request? Member Strelazzi? Member Grove? Nope. Member Kent? Member McCamey? Welcome.
Sure. So, Mr. Saris, the work I see going on down there right now, is that the work that you're talking about in terms of the brick versus the panels?
Yep.
Right. So
I did bring a sample with me in case the board wanted to kind of get a feel for it rather than just take a look at the pictures.
So the whole facade is going to be that same material?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I don't have any questions. Thank you. So with that, I'd just be looking for a motion to approve the minor modification to decision 12-2.
Motion.
Motion by member Strelazzi, second by member Grove. All those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
All right. And with that, we have the next item on the old new business is a request for as-built approval, Planning Board File 1904 for 144 Allen Street.
Madam Chairman, I'll be handling this matter this evening on behalf of Mr. Bogan. I'm not sure if the board members have had a chance to view the building at 144 Allen Street. Came out really nice. Spent some time out on the property with Mr. Bogan and toured the site. Some of the trees hadn't made sort of through their one-year warranty, so he replaced those. He's done some extensive drainage work in conjunction with the order of conditions as well for the Conservation Commission. And yeah, I mean, everything's done, went inside the building. It's very pristine. He's actually thinking about doing a phase 2 project with the multifamily dwelling that's really falling into disrepair in between these two structures. And then there was some housekeeping items on certifications and things that we needed from the professional engineer, which has all been submitted. Staff's recommending as-built approval with surviving conditions that relate to ongoing maintenance and general operation at the site. Thank you.
Okay, All right, thank you. And are there any members that have any questions for staff on this application? Yes, Member McCamey.
Thank you. I'll just ask the director, so when we reviewed this project several years ago, we had a number of meetings. There was some controversy because of the location and the elevations and what Mr. Bogan wanted to do. So from what I'm hearing from you is that the time that we spent and asking him to have a good project sounds like that actually happened.
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, I mean, it came out really, really nice. I think that extra time that went into thinking about how this is going to interact with the existing neighborhood, there are a lot of residential structures in that area, really shows when you visit the site.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, I don't have any questions on this one either. So with that, just be looking for a motion to grant as-built approval with surviving conditions in the staff report.
So move.
A motion by Member Kent,
Second?
second by Member Strelazzi. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, thank you. And 7:09, our public hearings start at 7:15, so we're just going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you. All right. Welcome back to the Braintree Planning Board meeting for June 11th. It's 7:15, so we can officially open our new public hearings and move into our continued public hearings after that. But prior to doing that, I did want to say a few words and just have a moment of silence. We have a member of the board, Daryl McCamey, who's given a lot of time, a lot of days, a lot of evenings, a lot of different times towards this town through this board and through other boards in service to the community. And after our May meeting, he lost his wife after a long battle with leukemia. And I would just like to keep her in mind and keep his family in mind during this difficult time. So if we could just please have a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Member Kami. Our first public hearing of the evening is 788 Liberty Street. I'm going to recuse myself on this application, and so Member Kent is going to lead the show, and I will see you all here shortly.
Attorney Modestino, good evening.
Good evening.
I guess you'll be leading this off, so let's hear it.
Thank you very much. Michael Modestino,
Oh,
Board under the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Sections 9 and 11, and the Braintree Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 135, Articles 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, and 14, that a public hearing will be conducted on Tuesday, June 11th, 2024, at 7:15 p.m. in the Braintree Town Hall. The Planning Board will consider a special permit, buffer use, and site plan review application from the applicant, John F. Kennedy. The applicant is proposing to construct a 973 square foot addition to the existing structure, along with parking and landscaping improvements. The applicant seeks a special permit to alter the existing site within the required buffer between the Residence A and the Open Space Conservancy Zone. The property is located at 788 Liberty Street and contains a land area of 60,283 square feet, is zoned Residence A and Residence B, and is shown on Assessor's Plan 1124, Plot 2B, and Assessor's Plan 1083, Plot 6.
now you may proceed.
thank you. Michael Modestino, representing the applicant, Weymouth Braintree Lodge of Elks, 2232. I'm here this evening. Mr. Kennedy couldn't be here. He had a family emergency, and his wife is here. No?
I'm Steve's wife. I'm part of the board of directors.
Oh, you're Steve's wife. I'm sorry. But we have a representative here from the Elks Club. I'm sorry to do that to you. I also have Eric Shoemaker here. He's the surveyor engineer for this project. As we know, the DAV hall fell into disrepair over the last number of years, and my client had purchased the property. It was a collective operation to do this, and they're trying to improve the property. And there's a process that we've gone through. We've gone before the Conservation Commission a couple weeks ago, and we've gone before the Zoning Board of Appeals on these matters. We're here before the Planning Board because we need some relief. One of the items is that we need a special permit to improve the property. We have to, the buffer area between the conservation area to the north side of the property is about 25 feet, and we're going to try to keep that area there, and we're going to enhance it by putting plantings out there that the Conservation Commission has now approved. But we do need relief for a special permit in that regards. As far as adequate ingress and egress to the property and the proposed structures with reference to automotive and pedestrian safety and convenience, the plan calls for adequate egress and egress to the property. The traffic flow entering and leaving the parking lot shall be one way to avoid any problems with the traffic flow. and we think that the automotive and pedestrian safety and convenience will be enhanced. We also suggest that the proposed use of the property shall not create any danger or pollution to the public or private water facilities. The SPGA shall consider the adequacy of the methods for drainage at the proposed site and the public water and sewer system serving the site. There shall be no excessive demands upon the water system. What's happening here is that the plan includes a dry well for a proposed 1,000 square foot addition that's going to be added on to the rear of the property, and that addition shall be, I think it's 973 square feet, and we would suggest that there'll be no excessive demand imposed upon the water system. The project shall conform to the signage, lighting, and environmental standards. There shall be no significant changes in the signage and the lighting on the property. The sign is being moved from where it was close to the street to back inside where the town of Braintree property is. And we've obtained an easement in that regard from the town for parking and to place the sign there. The site plan shall provide refuge, collection of disposal, and service areas. The site plan, what's called for here is that the disposal service shall be at the rear of the property, to the left side of the property, and it's going to be an area that's been approved by the planning department as well. There's been some discussion about it, and they've come to an agreement about where to put the dumpster. The site plan shall provide for screening and buffering. We are suggesting that the site plan shall improve the screening and buffering that already exists in the subject property, particularly with the enhanced buffer area on the left side and the rear side of the property. The site plan shall provide yards and other open space as required by the chapter. There's an outdoor yard area, and there's plenty of open space. The open space is being increased. I think it's from 9.2% to 19.5%. And the SPGA shall review for economic effect on and the general compatibility and harmony with adjacent properties. We're suggesting that there shall be no adverse economic impact upon adjacent properties and other properties in the district. The neighboring property to the rear is an apartment complex, as we know, and that it's a substantial distance from the applicant's building and parking area. The property to the left is conservation land, which shall be maintained as conservation land owned by the town, and the buffering area is being enhanced by the applicant's plan. The property to the right of the applicant's building is adequately protected from vehicles and delivery traffic coming upon the applicant's building. There shall be no problem with general compatibility and harmony with adjacent properties and other property in the district. We don't think it's going to affect the other residential housing in the area in any adverse way. I'm going to ask Eric to come up here and explain some of the technicalities of the plan.
Thanks, Mike. Good evening. My name is Eric Shoemaker. I'm a professional engineer with McKenzie Engineering Group. I'm going to walk the board members and the public through the site plan. So I'll be starting on sheet EX1, which is the existing conditions plan. The site's located at 788 Liberty Street in Braintree. It's comprised of 60,283 square feet, or about 1.38 acres. Currently situated on the property is an existing one-story lodge building with bituminous concrete parking area extending to the property lines. Last week we were in front of the Conservation Commission and received approval for an RDA allowing us to cut back that pavement limit. I'm going to get into that in the site plan. The site is located in the Braintree Residence A and Residence B zoning district. The majority of the site and the rear parking area is in that Residence A zone, and you should see that zoning line running across the central portion of the plan. We have Old Liberty Street to the west, Matthew Lane to the south, Woodlands to the north, with town-owned property, and as my colleague mentioned, there's multifamily residences directly to the east. A bordering vegetated wetlands complex is located just to the east of the property, and it runs parallel with that eastern property line. and those wetland resource areas were delineated by Environmental Consulting and Restoration on September 27th, 2023, and field located by Instrument Survey. A portion of that existing parking area is located in the 100-foot buffer zone as well as the 25-foot no disturb buffer zone, and our plan fixes that aspect of the current property. So I'll move on to the site layout plan, that's sheet C1. You're going to see in the bottom left of the site layout plan the land usage tables that shows the existing and proposed conditions of the site as it relates to the zoning bylaw. So the site layout plan shows the proposed addition and reconfiguration of the parking spaces. It also shows the wetland setbacks line and the surface treatments. As mentioned, that proposed addition is going to be approximately 973 square feet. It's proposed to the rear of the existing building, and it's going to have associated cement concrete sidewalk as well as some parking spaces, some handicap parking directly up against that sidewalk. We sized a proposed leaching dry well to handle the roof runoff from the proposed addition. We sized that for the 1-inch storm event, and after review of peer review letter this evening, it sounds like that will be reviewed by the stormwater department here in Braintree. So our plan proposes to reconfigure and resurface the parking area that currently exists on site. We want to eliminate all pavement within that 25-foot no disturb buffer zone, as well as bring the current parking spaces to compliance. There's many parking spaces over the property lines as it currently exists. Our plan is to cut that back, get them completely located on our property, and stripe them to the dimensions shown in the plan, which comply with the zoning bylaws. So that this change in parking brings the total parking count from 137 to 134 parking spaces. It's still well more than enough for this site to handle the use. The parking resurfacing is going to include a leveling course of pavement as well as a 2-inch overlay, and you'll see those notes to the left of the plan. There should be some paving notes. The existing drainage patterns of the parking area is going to be maintained to the extent feasible. We're not proposing any grading or regrading of the parking area, simply a resurfacing, as well as bringing the bituminous concrete pavement outside of that 25-foot buffer zone, disposing of it, as well as removing pavement that currently extends over the property line. A grass swale is located to the north of the parking area. This will be used to direct runoff towards the wetland buffer and away from the parking area. We did this to improve the water quality directed at that wetland resource area. As there's currently no curbing existing on the site or proposed, we don't want to promote sheet flow of the bituminous concrete pavement directly into the wetlands. The plan also proposes to the very rear of the parking lot a 12-inch wide by 12-inch deep pea-stone diaphragm. The intent of that is to slow the velocity of runoff and promote some infiltration in that resource area. The final sheet I'm going to mention is the landscape plan. That should be sheet LA1, I believe. The landscape plan shows some native plantings as well as restoration activities that we propose in the buffer zone. The plantings in the 10-foot landscape strip adjacent to the parking area include some native tree species spaced 20 feet on center. You'll see that as a shaded green area on the plan that coincides with the proposed parking lot buffer strip notes. The remaining resource area is hatched in brown, and that's going to include plantings, 52 native shrubs spaced 8 feet on center. That restoration area is also going to be seeded with the conservation mix. As I mentioned, the mitigation tasks are located on the left side of the plan. Both areas will completely remove the bituminous concrete pavement and debris in that 25-foot no disturb, and they'll be hand-seeded. So that's the technical details of the plan. I can help answer any questions that the board members may have.
Questions? Questions? Just one question. Doing the math, the number of parking spaces are reduced by 2 or 3?
3.
And but we're cutting back on the size of the parking lot.
That's correct, yeah. And the aisle widths did exceed in a couple locations 24 feet wide. So what we did was cut it back, stripe those in compliance, and bring that aisle width to 24 feet. And you can see on the plan, we made it kind of easier to navigate. You know, there's not as much dead space located in the parking lot. So while we did reduce, I think we reduced the overall pavement on the site by about 7,900 square feet. It only did result in a reduction of 3 parking spaces.
Okay, thank you. Member McCamey?
Thank you. Is there any current drainage issues now? Do we have flooding?
We didn't see any during our site inspections. I was out there a couple times over the last few months, as well as our survey crew to survey the property. We didn't see any flooding. There's a gradual grade from the street at, I believe it's Old Liberty Street, down to the wetlands. You can see by the topography on the plan, it generally just sheet flows right back there to the wetlands. So we can imagine that as the low point, the wetlands will absorb that sheet flow. What our plan proposed to do is basically slow that velocity and try and get a betterment to the water quality directed at the wetlands.
Okay. And I'm going to ask the Assistant Director, do we know what the town stormwater team says about this piece of property?
Yes, they provided an email dated yesterday, which is attached to the staff report.
Okay.
For 788 Liberty Street, it will require a minor stormwater permit, and then they have to add the Town of Braintree Stormwater Division on their contact list for their O&M plan.
Okay. And you mentioned a 1,000 square foot addition to the rear. Isn't all the community space in the front of the building? So what is that 1,000 square foot going to be used for? Or did I get that wrong?
No, you have it right.
Okay.
It's meant for the members.
Ma'am, could you please go to the microphone and state your name?
Hello, my name is Joyce Hoisington Dozois. I'm a current trustee at the lodge. So the addition is going to be the offices for the secretary and treasurer of our lodge, as well as the back of the building will be our entrance as members. The front of the building is going to be the entrance to our function hall for when we have functions. So the back is where we enter as members. Right now, our secretary and treasurer are at an off-site building conducting our business of the lodge, so we want to get them back into our lodge. The rest of the building, per se, is where the members' quarters is going to be.
Okay. And I know this isn't part of the, or maybe it is part of the permit, but are there going to be changes to the inside of the building as well?
Is that you or me?
Existing building?
No.
I don't believe there's going to be changes to the existing building. I think we're only talking about the proposed addition and parking lot resurfacing.
I take that as we're not extending walls or anything. We're going inside and we're gutting the inside, but keeping it to the inside.
Yeah, well, that was my point. So what's going to happen on the inside versus what's there today?
There's a lot of cut-up rooms in the DAV, and we just, we're going to take down a couple of walls that we're able to, leave up the ones we have to, but we're just sort of reconfiguring where our members, where like tables and chairs will be, where our dance floor will be. We have a pool table and a shuffleboard area, so we're just reconfiguring to make the best use of the space that we can for all of our members to enjoy.
Okay, so modernizing it basically.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And I will also ask the assistant director, disturbing the buffer zone, any issues there? Conservation have any concerns?
Conservation issued a negative determination
Okay.
for the applicant's project. In regards to the other buffer zone, which is where the applicant is before the board tonight, if you look at the existing conditions plan, you see some encroaching pavement in that buffer zone, and what they're doing is they're pulling that back further into the site. So they're improving the buffer per se with these improvements.
Okay. I don't have any more questions, Mr. Chairman. I think this looks like some improvement. So thank you.
Attorney Margestino, just a couple of questions on the use. This is for wedding receptions and retirement parties and that type of thing?
Absolutely.
So the function hall itself, we are looking to have such functions as that: weddings, birthday parties, anniversary parties. That's about it. Downstairs in our members' lounge is just for our members. We have shuffleboard pool, as I mentioned. We have live music on Saturdays. It's just a place for our members to go and enjoy the company of each other. The basis of any Elks Lodge is our function room covers the bills of our building, and our function room, the function room covers the bills, and our Elks Lounge, the money we make down there, we give back to charities. We have a lot of different charitable endeavors we're involved in: veterans, senior citizens, special needs, and the youth are our top four. And throughout the year, we just had a very successful hoop shoot here in the city of Braintree, soccer shoot that we had last year. Upcoming, we're going to be looking at, kids' Christmas party for the community. We did a drug awareness contest where we had kids enter posters, videos, and essays. And actually, there's a girl from Braintree whose poster won, and she's actually going to the national convention, not herself, her poster, is going to get judged at the national convention in hopes of winning across the country. And her drawing could be on the next cover of the Elks coloring book that'll get given out to all the lodges across the country. So that's some of the things we're doing right now, but we're always just trying to improve on our community events and community activities. So that's the whole basis of why we exist.
Thank you. Thank you.
The only thing I would add was when we talk about the addition on the back, there's going to be a handicap accessible bathroom in that area.
Okay. Good. Any questions from the audience? Any other questions from the board members? Questions or comments from planning people?
The chair, to the board, and the applicant, staff did prepare a report dated July 11th with draft findings and conditions. There are approximately, there's approximately 59 conditions prepared for the special permit site plan review application. Staff has prepared the draft findings as it relates to the buffer use. The applicant, I would like to add, is really making an improvement to the site. I believe it was Mr. Dezois who came to my office, our department, probably a year and a half ago after the Elks purchased the property, and they've been working very diligently in making improvements to this parcel. Staff would like to note just a couple of things as it relates to this. There are a few things that the applicant has to add to the plan which are conditional. For example, condition 3B, the applicant, prior to the start of the authorized activity, shall submit a lighting plan that details the type of lighting and the proposed locations within the site. Lighting shall be designed as to not spill or glare onto abutting properties. Condition 3C, prior to the start of the authorized activity, the applicant shall revise the site layout plan to include an area for refuse removal that is not located within the 30-foot buffer to the open space and conservancy zone. 3D, prior to the start of the authorized activity, the applicant shall revise the site layout plan to include a loading area under section 135-812. And then 3E, prior to the start of the authorized activity, the applicant shall revise the site layout plan to include areas of snow storage for a 6-inch storm. We do have conditions drafted with the applicant meeting those requirements. I have a question through the chair and the board to the applicant. If any of those revisions complicate the plan, and any testimony you could provide between Attorney Modestino or Mr. Shoemaker.
We don't envision those changes having a big impact on the plan. We discussed earlier the location for the dumpster just north of the proposed addition. That's a good spot. They'll be located outside of the traffic pattern. It's right up against the building. Should be easy enough to access. Adjacent to a 24-foot wide driving aisle. We can designate a loading area. We can also show some snow storage on the plan, and just for the record, any snow storage that can't be contained on site will just be removed off-site to a snow storage facility in compliance with state regulations.
Awesome. And that is, to the board, that is also a condition that's reflected in this package. I would like to note that the applicant did go before the Zoning Board of Appeals for a host of relief. Under ZBA decision 24-14, the applicant received relief for the following: to amend ZBA decision number 1254 to increase the seating capacity from 225 seats to 350 seats. They amended ZBA decision number 566 to recertify the front yard setback of the structure. There was a variance to construct an off-premise commercial sign, the ground sign that's shown in the plans. There was a variance for maximum lot coverage. Although they are lowering the lot coverage, it is a commercial piece of property and they needed the variance. Same goes for the open space. As they increased it, it was still non-conforming and they required the variance. That being said, staff has recommended the public hearing be opened and allow for testimony from the applicant, public, and board members with the following motions as it relates to correspondence, the public hearing, and the special permit and site plan review application.
Okay. Director Santucci-Rossi, yes, ma'am.
Yes, if I may, through the chair, quickly, just to Attorney Modestino. And Connor and I have been working on this for a while, and we had some discussions with some folks in regards to the liquor license, and I was just curious if the number of seats on the liquor license does in fact match the modifications that were most recently made through the zoning board.
I really don't know that. I'd have to check on that.
Okay. Okay. Those all need to be, I know there was a previous zoning decision that capped the number of seats, and then we were going through this exercise with Mike and the folks from the Elks and discovered that the seats, in fact, exceeded that. So they've clarified that through the zoning board, but we need to make sure that the number of seats on the license is in keeping with those numbers.
I'll check on that immediately.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, then, again, Director Santucci-Rossi, help me with the protocol here, the order of motions, or, yeah.
We would start with a motion to accept all correspondence. There was a correspondence list prepared by Ms. Quinlan that has the last date, today's date, June 11th, which is the staff report with draft findings and conditions. There would be a second motion to close the public hearing, and then a third motion in regards to the special permit and site plan review application.
Okay, so we'll have a motion to enter into the record what we've been listening to and reading. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing. Oh, sorry.
Member McCamey,
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the third motion would be to approve the matter at hand here, special permit 135-702 and site plan review for the property at 788 Liberty Street.
I'll move favorable recommendation for the special permit buffer 135-702 and the site plan review for 788 Liberty Street, Planning Board File 24-06, with the conditions as presented by the staff.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Matter is approved. Thank you. And we will move on to the next item, 119 and 133 Common Street, but we will summons Chair Crowe. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
You did great.
If I may, read the legal notice, and just want to address for the record this evening, I see this young man setting up an easel. I've reached out to Attorney Crimmins today with some follow-up from Mayor Joyce's office, and there is a local desire to reconvene locally with some key department heads to get a better understanding of this proposed battery storage project. So I will read the notice. I'm recommending the hearing be opened and continued without testimony.
Right. Thank you, Director Santucci-Razzi. If you could just please read the legal notice for Planning Board File 2407.
Notice is given by the Planning Board under the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Sections 9 and 11, and the Braintree Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 135, Articles 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, and 12, that a public hearing will be conducted in Braintree Town Hall on Tuesday, June 11th, 2024 at 7:15 p.m. The Planning Board will consider a site plan review application by the applicant, Convergent Energy Solutions, LLC. The applicant seeks to construct a battery energy storage system facility. The property is 1.52 acres, has an address of 119 and 133 Common Street, is zoned Residence B, and is identified on Assessor's Plan 2063 as plots 2, 3, and 3C. Thank you.
Thank you. And Attorney Crimmins, I see you're here on the application, without giving any testimony in connection with the director's recommendation, I did want to get your thoughts on the recommendation to continue without testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. For the record, Attorney Barry R. Crimmins of 909 Washington Street in Stoughton, here on behalf of the applicant, Convergent Energy Solutions, LLC. Ms. Santucci-Rossi was good enough, as she mentioned, to call me today to mention that she had met with Mayor Joyce, and the mayor had expressed some concerns. It was my understanding, I may have misinterpreted, that we were still going to go forward tonight with our presentation to the board, and with the expectation that the public hearing would get continued to July. And then in the meantime, between now and the July meeting, we would address whatever issues the mayor had. I think she primarily wants us to present an emergency response plan, which my client does have. She wants us to share that with not only her office, but with the building department and the fire department, which obviously we're more than happy to do. So our hope and expectation for tonight was that we could present the project to the board, see if the board members had any particular questions or concerns, and then once again with the expectation that we would then get continued to the July meeting. My concern is if we continue without testimony to the July meeting and then come in July, then if the board members have questions or concerns, we've lost that time period.
Okay. I do see you do have your team here, so if you would like to do the presentation that that would be fine by me, with the understanding that we'll continue it for additional feedback. I would just ask if the plans get set up, they go on the other side, or else Bell has a difficult time picking them up on the camera.
That was going to be one of my first questions, Madam Chairman. Where did you want us to set up the easel? So you want it right here?
On the other side of you.
Right here?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Again, Attorney Barry R. Crimmins on behalf of Convergent Energy Solutions, LLC. The property, as identified in the legal notice, is at 119 and 131 Common Street in Braintree, located in the Residence B District. The landmark that I'm sure you're all familiar with, it's the location of St. Catherine's Greek Orthodox Church. There is a portion of the property, as you face the property, in the back left area, where the battery energy storage system facility will be located. Our application before you tonight, once again, is for a site plan review. It was determined early on in the process that this proposed use was a use that would be allowed as of right as an essential municipal service. So we did not have to go for a special permit. We are currently before, and appeared last Thursday before, the Conservation Commission on a notice of intent. That hearing likewise was continued to the Concom's meeting of July 11th. And so once again, we anticipate this hearing likewise being continued. If I may just very briefly, Madam Chairman, introduce the members of our team who are here tonight. On behalf of Convergent Energy Solutions, Amanda Henry is seated here in the front row. She is with Convergent. Our project engineer is Dean Apostolaris, who's with Kimby Horn, our project engineer. Also here on behalf of the church is in, I apologize, Charles Saramias, thank you, I apologize. I thought I had written down his name. So the church owns the property. We would be leasing a portion, as I mentioned, on the left side of the property, approximately 1.5 acres for the battery energy storage facility, which I'm advised this board has a bit of experience with from other locations. If I may, I'd like to call upon Amanda Henry at this time, Madam Chairman, just give a brief overview of the project, who Convergent is, how we came to locate that particular site, and once again, why we're here tonight. So if I may call upon Ms. Henry to address the board just briefly on those matters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Amanda Henry with Convergent Energy and Power. I'm a director of development and work on battery energy storage systems throughout the Northeast. Convergent has been a leader in battery energy storage. We started in 2011 and completed our first project in 2014. We mostly work with smaller municipal electric companies to help support their grid and defray upgrades to their transmission system. So the battery is designed to charge at off-peak times, and then they're able to utilize the energy that's stored in the batteries during peak times to help stabilize the grid for customers. So we got involved with this project for an RFP that was put out by BELD in 2022. We responded to that RFP, and they had a specific feeder that they were looking to support. So the areas for the project were limited. We looked at a number of sites in Braintree specifically and landed on this church parcel. We, in discussions with the church, found that they rarely use a lot of this parking lot on the west side of their property, and felt that they could lose some of that parking without it adversely impacting the church. We made sure that the loss of parking was accounted for in the redesign, so we have enough parking to support the church from a zoning perspective. And BELD, we have an agreement with BELD. It's it's a shared savings agreement, so Convergent will own and operate this asset, and we are responsible for essentially saving Beld money. So we have to determine when to charge and dispatch the batteries, and in turn, we share the savings with Beld, who then shares that savings with the ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. So, Madam Chairman, if I may, I'd just like to call upon our project engineer, Dean Apostolaris, with Kimby Horn, to go through the site plan with the members. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dean Apostolaris. I'm a registered professional engineer with Kimley Horn. Talking about the site plan that we have before you today. As mentioned, the application, the address 119 through 133 Common Street. The property here is the existing St. Catherine's Greek Orthodox Church. As mentioned previously in the presentation, we are proposing a battery energy storage facility in the northwestern portion of the site. This site is split up into 3 separate parcels, actually, which all make up the contiguous site of the St. Catherine's Greek Orthodox Church. All of our proposed improvements are confined to the western parcel and are all contained within that parcel. Within our project area, we have a mixture of existing green space, grassed area, right in the northeast corner, as you can see here, as well as paved area. In preparation for the improvements, we would be doing full depth asphalt removal of that pavement area and extending the facility into the grassed area as well. Just to give you a little bit of a lay of the land on the existing conditions, the property is bounded to the south by Common Street, to the north by State Highway 3, to the east and the west by 2 residential properties. In terms of natural resource areas, we have a wetland on the western side. In most of what is in that adjacent parcel, it comes onto our property a little bit. The 25-foot buffer and the 100-foot buffer also come onto our property. We would be impacting both of those areas. However, within the 25-foot buffer, it would be specifically limited to the already developed asphalt condition. We would not be disturbing any of the existing landscaped area there to the west of the parking lot. It would be all contained within the impervious area. We also have a wetland resource area to the south in a wooded area. That is what makes up the stormwater pond and detention and rate control for the western half of the site. Stormwater that runs from that western half of the site sheets down in the parking lot, is collected via a stormwater piping network, is piped into a water quality device, an existing water quality device, and then sent into this pond where it stages and is sent out via a 12-inch reinforced concrete pipe, which eventually goes out to the brook that runs to the east of the site. If I may, I'll just turn to the page here. So our facility here, as you can see on the sheet, is approximately 8,600 square feet in area. As I mentioned before, it takes up a portion of the existing parking lot, as well as a portion of the existing lawn area to the north. In terms of impervious area, we're actually reducing the impervious coverage on the entire site by about 2,100 square feet. We're keeping the parking, as Amanda said, within the minimum requirements. Existing parking here, as noted, is 128 stalls. We're removing 15 for a total parking proposed of 113. The required minimum is 109, so we are still well within that requirement. In terms of the facility itself, it will be contained within an 8-foot high chain link fence with black plastic slatting to screen it. Within that facility would be concrete pads which house the electrical equipment. So you have your concrete pads that house the battery energy storage system containers themselves, as well as the associated electrical equipment, most of which is owned and operated by Convergent, some of which towards the south end of the site is owned and operated by Beld, transformers, interconnection equipment, and the like. And that interconnection is tied out to the existing electrical grid and just into the street there. Again, in terms of what's inside the facility, on the ground we have gravel. It's a purposefully sized gravel, a 1.5 minimum washed stone. I'll get into that a little bit later with regards to the stormwater management system that we're designing here. But generally it's pretty simple. That's everything that's contained within the facility. We would be protecting the entire facility from the parking area with vehicular rated, crash impact rated bollards. So from a safety perspective in terms of parking and vehicular circulation, there would be safety there. There is a man gate provided on the northeastern side of the facility, as well as a sliding gate on the southern end of the facility. And in front of that sliding gate, we would have proposed removable bollards, and that's just right down in this area here at the southern end of the site. And in front of that area, we would be maintaining the existing 25-inch circulation for two-way traffic in that aisle, so we would not be decreasing that space at all. We'd also be providing some gore striping in the area that we would have some space in, just to be able to provide some traffic, some maintenance of traffic in that area as well. To move into the topics about stormwater, I would just like to get into a little bit about some of the constraints that we're running into on this site. So previously, when the church was built, a large parking area was actually proposed all fully on the northern end of the parking area that currently exists there today. The entire parking area was not built. However, the stormwater network and everything that was built there, from what we had explored through record documents, was built as proposed, with the exception of an infiltration chamber. And the reason that infiltration chamber on the western half of the site was not built was due to high groundwater. We had conducted a geotechnical evaluation on site with numerous borings, specifically in the area of our facility. We were noting groundwater of 3 feet below ground surface in all the borings. So we have very high groundwater. I think the reason that the previously proposed, when the church was getting built, that infiltration system was not built, was because I believe they may have done their groundwater testing on the eastern half of the site, where it was a little bit deeper, and then they ran into that issue, I think, during construction. In any case, the reason that I mentioned the groundwater is because of what we're proposing for our stormwater management system. It's a little bit unique in terms of what we're providing. This here would be technically a mixture of redevelopment and new development, by way of that we are redeveloping an existing developed parking lot, and it would be technically a portion of new development because we're developing existing lawn and grassed area. But wholly we're truly kind of considering this a redevelopment, and we're providing a stormwater management solution that matches the existing peak rate runoff, and it does that to the maximum extent that is feasible for us, given the constraints that we have on the site. So to get into a little bit about that, I'd like to turn the attention to sheet C 7.1. So what we are providing within the gravel area of this facility is a 12-inch deep section of 1.5-inch minimum washed gravel. And the reason that we're providing that is to provide a certain amount of void space. We're using a 35% void space calculation in here in this section to be able to provide some sort of quantity control. That outfall would be going into the existing system via a perforated riser pipe that would be located in the southern portion of the site, as well as the northeastern portion of the site. The plans that we had submitted previously noted only a riser outfall in the southern portion of the facility. After appearing before the Conservation Commission, there was some concern with a low point in the northeastern area of the site, and a suggestion was made to hydraulically connect that point of the site to the existing system to be able to get water out of there quicker. And so we've done just that. We've placed basically the same apparatus for outfall in that northeastern corner. And what this system allows for us to do is essentially take advantage of the void space within that 1.5-inch minimum washed stone, allow that infiltration into the soil for groundwater recharge, as well as for storage and quantity control. We're providing a small 2-inch sump on the bottom of that section and perforated riser pipe above that. So we essentially have constant outflow above that 2-inch section, above that 2-inch sump rather, and then that gets sent out ultimately to the existing network on site, ultimately to the existing pond, and then out to the brook via how it currently is being outfalled. In terms of hydraulic patterns on the site, we are not changing the hydraulic patterns or the drainage patterns on site at all. The grading is very minimal. We're matching essentially, the same pattern that it had. Everything drains pretty much from north to south down into that brook, into that pond via the network or via inlets, and we're essentially just matching that system and providing rate control at the source of our facility via the system that I had just explained there. We had received a number of comments from the Conservation Commission in regards to our initial application. Most of those comments were made with regard to stormwater, specifically the model that we were showing within our stormwater management report, as well as some of the rainfall data that we were using to achieve our values. All of that has since been revised. The plans have been revised. The stormwater management report has been revised, and we're looking forward to a resubmission of that material to this board, as well as the Conservation Commission, who we are set to appear in front of again come July. And so that's generally the proposed improvements that we have. I'm happy to answer any questions about what I've proposed upon, or if your team had an opportunity to review any of the comments that were provided from the Conservation Commission or any of the responses that we had provided prior to last week's meeting. I'm happy to answer any of those questions, but that's all I have in terms of a presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I know I have some questions for you if you want to stay up there.
Sure.
But I'll start with some of the other members. Member Sterlazzi, did you have any questions on the plans?
The only questions I have are in regards to safety, and I have a feeling that's going to be addressed, so I'll hold off for now.
Okay, thank you. Member Grove?
How was this site determined to be the preferable site as opposed to like putting it on the Beld property in East Braintree?
I'll let Amanda answer that question.
Yeah, so the RFP that Beld put out was specific to certain feeders in town. And so I believe Beld does have another battery system in town in another area. But this location was specified by Beld. So they had kind of like a ring on a map that we had to stay within for the RFP that they put out. Does that answer your question?
Sort of. I know that there's a dedicated gas feed, a gas line, electrical feed to the South Shore Plaza. So I mean that, if you're talking about supporting the plaza in any way, I would think they could pick that up over where the line originates.
I don't think that they are talking about supporting that. I think they're trying to target specific areas within Braintree, and it wouldn't be going all the way back to the plaza. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Member Kent?
Yeah, just a couple of questions about how the business works. So Beld is hiring Convergent?
Correct.
And as a contractor or as an ongoing vendor?
I guess it would be as like a partner, or I view it more as a partnership. We are, I guess, a contractor to them. We own and operate this, and we will also construct this asset. And so the agreement we have with Beld is to share the savings that are generated from utilizing this battery.
So all the energy that is stored off prime time to be used during prime time is going to Beld?
Correct.
Okay. And, okay, so you're partner of Beld, and then, so who pays the church, or the church is getting a rental fee as well?
Yes, so we have a lease with the church, and we pay the church directly.
Okay. And one other question, the proximity to the highway and the steep banks there, is that something that's a concern, or you're not concerned about that?
No, not necessarily. You know, that would really be more of a concern from a constructability standpoint. but we can access the site off of Common Street. And then you're talking about more on the north side of the site here, right here?
Yeah, the expressway, the I-93, I-95, whatever it is there, the ramps and all that are, very steep in the back of the property. Is that a concern?
Not particularly. There's about 40 feet between the back of the curb currently and the street, so we didn't feel that there was any major concern there.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Member McCamey?
Thank you. I don't want to be dramatic, but let's say there was an explosion. Who has liability?
Sure, Convergent has liability for that.
100%?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And Convergent is paying the church, okay? Having dealt with this at a previous church myself, that's unrelated business income to the church. They're a not-for-profit institution. So my question is, to what extent does that put their tax-exempt status at risk? I really think that needs to be looked at, and/or they have to pay taxes.
Yeah, I don't know specifically the financial status of the church, but we can certainly respond to the board at the next meeting on that.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go with just I have a couple of stormwater questions. You had mentioned that it matches the current peak rate and described the system, which I appreciate. Is there any additional treatment being put in? I didn't see anything with separators or anything to treat TSS or phosphorus. Is that part of the plan, or was that raised by the Conservation Commission?
So, to your first question, we are not proposing any sort of proposed water quality treatment on this site. To your second question about the Conservation Commission raising that point, they did, and our response to that was about the existing water quality device that's currently there. It's a double-chambered concrete tank system, and that tank, from what we had received from record documents when the project was approved and built, that tank is sized to treat a larger area of impervious than what is currently existing here. Those details and engineering documents are part of the current record for this property, so they're publicly available. That was actually one of the first things that we had looked at, was all the stormwater information, because we had understood that there had been a large history for this site, so we did a pretty deep dive into the calculations, the HydroCAD models, all of the details for that. With respect to my thoughts, just professionally on the quality, there will be no truck traffic, there will be no vehicular traffic whatsoever. Hardly will there be even a person, really walking through this area, except for, maintenance or, once it's constructed or during construction. So that area will not receive really any pollution or pollutants from, what normally might be considered in an area like this in a parking lot. So we didn't feel the need to really include that. To sort of answer the question about that specifically with regards to what we are proposing, we feel that the gravel system there provides some form of quality control. I understand it's not a TSS control or a phosphorus control, but it does provide some form of water quality. It does allow for groundwater recharge in some aspects, just via infiltration. We're not, taking this impervious area and sending it to an inlet into a water quality device. We're slowing that. We're allowing the groundwater, the runoff that's contained within that facility to infiltrate, to do its thing. It's a natural system, so we're allowing for it to do that naturally. So those are really the points I have in response to your question.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if this is you or for Ms. Henry, but what are the height of the battery units?
It's about 10 feet.
Okay. And I think that leads to sort of my next concern is there is a house right next door, and it is a Residence B property, and so it's probably more Attorney Crimmins, was how the proposal and the use was fitting in with the zoning and the neighboring property, if there was a use category that the position is that it fits under, or how that works.
Right, so we looked at the use question early on, and it was determined that the battery storage facility would qualify as an essential service, and therefore it's allowed in all zones. That property is immediately to our left that you're referring to. So they are the closest butter. I don't know if I can borrow these, they're down here. The facility is in the back left corner, so as far as the area where we're proposing the battery facility, we're getting it about as far away from their residence as possible, within the restraints or constraints, I should say, of the area we're dealing with.
Okay, thank you. And I understand there was a question raised earlier with the emergency, and we'll get more information on that in July, but as just considering the residential property and the location, I would just ask that you look at whether it's at all possible to shift it further away or add more buffering for the 10 feet battery units from that property.
Right. Yeah, no, we'll look at all options. I don't want to preclude anything. I'm not sure to what extent we can move the facility to any great degree, but we can certainly provide buffer for it. Okay, sorry. That's what happens when I speak out of turn.
No, I just wanted to mention, because I failed to mention during my initial presentation, we are providing a screening buffer of red cedars along that entire side of the facility. We had initially proposed a row of white pines in that area. To the Conservation Commission's comment, they had preferred to see something a little bit more narrow. They suggested arborvitae or an eastern red cedar. We had our landscape architects choose the eastern red cedar. So we're providing 17 of those trees along that western fence line. So there is quite a lot of screening actually that's going to be proposed there. In addition, there is a pretty dense piece of woodland that separates the two properties. I myself had gone out to the site in late spring, and you were able to see a little bit through, but it's really not a close distance for them, from my opinion anyway. But regardless, we are proposing screening there.
Okay, thank you. And this is a public hearing. We are going to, as discussed earlier, we are going to continue the application into July, where we'll have more information on emergency response and any other aspects of the particular use with respect to that. If anyone has any questions or comments on the plan, or any brief comments that they want to have considered with the July presentation, I would just ask that you come up and state your name and address, and we'll have public comments in July as well.
Excuse me, Michael Lang, Cotton Ave in Braintree, where you are going to have another meeting and the mayor's getting together. I'll save all my comments for that. What I would like to do is, they mentioned that they do have an emergency response plan already, and I'd like to know how the public can get the emergency response plan, so I can comment on that also. Okay.
And I'll let them answer. It sounds like that will be submitted before the July meeting. Is that correct?
Correct. So it's our intent to submit it to the building department, certainly to the planning department, as well as to the mayor's office and the fire department.
Okay, thank you. And then Mr. Lang would...
Well, you'd be, if I may, through you.
Yeah, I'll just respond. Mr. Lang, when it gets submitted to the planning department, it does get posted online on the planning department information, and you can feel free to follow up with Director Santucci-Razzi or Assistant Director Murphy with any questions as to timing, so that you can find out earlier.
If If I could just make a comment on that as well. We will provide a draft of the emergency response plan, but we liked it to be an interactive process with the town. So we plan to meet with the town and the fire chief to review that and modify it as they see fit. So it's not a written in stone document. It's more of a starting point. So it's a detailed document, but we will go over the specifics with the fire chief and make sure that it's to a point that he is sufficiently satisfied with that plan before we finalize it.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so with that, yes, please come on up, state your name and address.
Alyssa Porter, 2 Headland Ave in Braintree. I'm the trustee's daughter, so I'm one of the, descendants that will go along in the trust. And so we're at 2 Headland Ave, so it goes this proposed area to the west here. And then it has Rosie Pappas's old house, which is now, I believe, a rental with a landlord. I don't know who the landlord is. And then it's my uncle's house at the front house on Headland Ave, and my mother's house and the trust house at the back house of the land. I have lots and lots of things aside from safety, but one of those is that Pappas's field, which used to be the parking lot, was also the skating rink for the town because it flooded naturally every winter. The whole community. I worked with people as growing up, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, you're from Braintree, you know, the Pappas's place for skating," and I was like, "Well, that was before me." So this water table level with my mom's house has 2 sump pumps going 24 hours a day, constantly, which has only gotten worse by construction up on the highway and the construction of the houses for Common Street. It's just constant water. That water table is no joke, and the rock is also no joke. We have like icebergs in the backyard of rock. What I wanted to ask is, it said that when he asked about the liability for the explosion, the answer was convergent. However, in a press release from one of the thermal explosions last year in Warwick, New York, the press release cited that it really seemed to put blame on the battery part that was there. Hold on, I have the exact quote right here from the press release. At this time, there's still a lot we do not know. What we have learned is that the fire alarms went off, occurred with 2 of the Povins. Sorry, it's too small for me to read. 46 and, blind. Powen's newest model battery storage systems, which are referred to as the Centipede. One of those Powen Centipede systems on County Road 1A in Warwick, New York, caught fire as of early afternoon on June 27, 2023. The other system on Church Street is experiencing problems. Convergent, which purchased these systems from Powen, does not have this model deployed anywhere else and was among the first customers to receive this system from Powen. The Powen Centipedes are the only systems that are currently experiencing problems at Convergent's Warwick, New York projects. While Convergent is responsible for developing and operating these 2 sites, we rely on partners to manufacture and install the battery storage systems. In this case, Powen provided battery storage systems. We are now working in a support role with Powen's team as they assess the source of the problem and coordinate the response. So my question there is, it's been almost a year. Who has been found responsible? Who's dealing with the liability? Who does insurance pay out for any of the problems? And how is it then explained when it was a General Electric battery component in another thermal explosion that happened in
and if I could just
with General Electric?
And then I apologize to interrupt. I do want to keep the safety comments to July when we have more information to be able to talk about specific to this project. And
Yeah,
what's
he
being
just
put into
mentioned
place.
liability, so that was on my mind. I'll give you all my questions and you can take note and then answer them all together. The other is the 17 red cedars as a buffer. How much buffer is there between the red cedars and the battery itself?
It would be about 12 feet.
Okay. And then how much?
I'm sorry, if you could direct your comments up here and then.
Oh, I'm
they'll
sorry.
have
Sorry.
right.
I wanted to know how much of a buffer there was between the battery systems and the vegetation that they were planting, and also any additional vegetation that would be around that area.
And your question is between the vegetation and the batteries, or between
Between the vegetation and the batteries, because best practices says 10 feet. So like, how are we slowly, what is this whole buffer system going to be? Is it going to have like, are we preventing a chain reaction from going from the trees to the children who live next door in the Pappas's old house? These are the sorts of things that, not as a safety thing, I mean, not as a, this is still with the geological thing too, just because everything there is, there's so much, I don't even know.
And I would encourage also, if you have very specific questions with respect to the project and the property, you can feel free to email the planning office also, and they can pass those on to the applicant, and we can make sure that you get the specific information that you're looking for as well as the discussion that we have in July.
Oh yeah, lots.
Okay.
Lots.
All right, thank you. Could I comment? Sure, yes.
Okay, I mean, I would like to respond to those comments today, if I could. So yes, Convergent has had 2 fires over the course of their 14 years of being a business. They unfortunately both happened last summer. We have a conclusion on the Warwick fire that happened. I'm not sure when the press release was aired that she was discussing, but after the event, we hired third parties to do an investigation into what happened. We found that in that instance, the Powin system that was utilized wasn't properly watertight. Powin accepted full responsibility for the manufacturing defect in those battery systems. We, as Convergent, are responsible for getting that project cleaned up. We hired third parties to do hazmat testing on air, soil, water, making sure that everything in the community was safe. We are responsible for making sure the batteries get back online in that area. That specific project is with Orange and Rockland. So Convergent is fully responsible there. While we aren't the manufacturer, we are responsible for dealing with that manufacturing defect and the problems that it created. So I stand by my statement that Convergent is fully responsible here. The other fire that happened in New York was a GE product. We have not had as much success working with GE on coming to a resolution there, as you can imagine. There is a lot of legalese going on, and we haven't been able to come to a conclusion on that project for exactly what happened. There's a lot of back and forth that's going on. So I cannot speak to exactly what happened at that fire, but we will be happy to share that once a resolution is reached. I think that is all I have to I think that answers most of the questions she had regarding those 2 fires, but I did want to say that like we are aware that, you know, these systems inherently, as with all electrical systems, can catch on fire, and that is why we have an emergency response plan, and we address this head on to begin with. So I just want to, we are very proactive here. I can answer any questions related to those additional events. If you want to just send me questions as you receive them, I'm happy to provide as much information as I can.
Thank you. And then unless there are any new questions, I think with that we'll just, I'm sorry, yes, come on up.
My name is Tom Preston, and I'm the trustee for 122 Common Street, directly across from the church.
So as they move forward with this, I would hope that they will really consider the water table as well, like the other folks have spoken to, because any rain there whatsoever, the sump pump does run constantly, all the time. Other things to think about would be rodent control there. Seems to be a lot of rodents that come up, so as they start to unearth this property to get this going, I would hope they'd have a great plan of action to mitigate that, not just as they're building, but going forward. And I'm concerned about how visible it will be from the street, because that will impact values on that street quite a bit. So that's all my questions.
Okay, thank you. Yes. All right. Okay, with that, we'll take a motion to continue to our July hearing. Do you have the date on that? Okay, a motion to continue to July 9th. No, we'll leave it open until July. All right, motion by member Sterlazzi, second by member Kent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thank you. And take a moment, but if you want to start getting set up for the next public hearing is 9 John Paul Circle, Planning Board File 2405. All right, Assistant Director Murphy, you read the legal notice into the record, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Notice is given by the Planning Board under the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 11, and the Braintree Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 135, Article 5, Article 6, Article 11, and Article 12, that a public hearing will be conducted on Tuesday, June 11th, 2024, at 7:15 p.m. in the Braintree Town Hall. The Planning Board will consider a grading permit application from the applicant, Biao Hung. The applicant is proposing to remove the existing retaining wall, construct a new retaining wall up to 8 feet in height, in addition to importing approximately 178.7 plus or minus cubic yards of fill. The property is located at 9 John Paul Circle and contains a land area of 20,356 square feet, is zoned Residence B, and is shown on Assessor's Plan 3064, Plot 8Q.
All right, thank you. Let's see, we have Mr. Mann, if you would like to just give us an overview of the application, please.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Chi Man from Hardyman Design Group. The civil engineers in record on this project. To give you just a little background, I was contacted by the owner of 9 Jensen Farm Road. I was told that they got a stop work order, basically, and I talked to the owner and understand what their situation is. What happened is they have been sinkhole developing on their driveway and some cracks also on their asphalt driveway. Is because of we noticed some of the slope starting to erode on the back. Take the microphone this way. The site generally sloped back this way from the street towards the back. And on the back area, right about where the proposed wall is, there is a big drop in grade, probably about 10 feet or so from top to bottom. And this area is generally, I didn't notice it was actually wetlands when I visit the site, because before I do, I go to the site, I check the Mass GIS, which not and the town GIS, it doesn't show as wetland at all. So when we visit the site, we notice there is the job in gray in here and what the owner had started doing without knowing that he has to have a grading permit or the conservation filings. They started to work on the slope. He tried to build a retaining wall to stabilize the slope. They excavate some material and put it on the side to start putting the form down for the proposed retaining wall. And then they got a stop work order. So that's the time I got involved and come in and help them design the wall and do the proper filings. There's no proposed impervious at all. The whole purpose of this is basically stabilize the slope that have a sign of eroding. We met with conservation last week. So they have some concern of the construction sequencing. They want to make sure there's not any further impact to the wetlands. We do have a wetland scientist involved. He declared the back area is basically all wet. He couldn't put the fracs down to delineate the wetland because some of the excavator material was actually put on the wetlands. So he cannot actually frac the wetland. But what we are proposing is to put in the new wall and do restoration of the area or in front of the wall to put back wetland planting to restore the area. One of the things I would like to mention is that this area on the dry day it doesn't look wet, but there is an 18-inch pipe coming into the properties, and I believe that is taking all the street drainage. And I don't believe there is an easement based on our survey. So that area, this area, I'm sorry, different orientation, the pipe coming in around these locations. It's 18-inch pipe, pretty large. On the back here, the grade start rising again because that is the railroad track from the shipyard. So it's a depression right at the rear portion of the properties where the wetland is, accumulated over the years from the street drainage.
Sorry to interrupt. Is that what's marked as drainage ditch, or is that something else?
Well, there is a drainage ditch. Historically, there's a drainage ditch, but with all the runoff coming in from the roadway, it's pretty much not maintaining that area. It's a lot of erosion. So the drainage ditch kind of disappeared and forming other drainage ditch within this area. So what we're trying to do is retroactive asking for approval from the board to just build a retaining wall and to just restore the wetlands. Again, we are not asking to build anything that making more space or proposing any impervious area. We understand that there's after the fact filing, which the client they don't speak the language. They wasn't aware of these regulations, so we are helping them to get through the hurdles.
Okay, thank you. I know the staff report had quite a few open questions on it. Assistant Director Murphy, can you run through some of the questions that you had?
Yes, Madam Chair. So staff reviewed this in the purview of Article 12. There are some comments as it relates to certain sections under Article 12 that we have asked the applicant to revise the plan to. There's questions about vegetation, whether things need to be removed. Out in the field, there is quite a substantial amount of vegetation there, close to where the retaining wall is and certainly along the property boundaries. There is a question I have. You show an existing wall footing that passes between the common boundary line between 9 John Paul and 17 John Paul Circle. I'm just curious whether or not.
Again, the the clients, hire a contractor without a survey or any engineering plans. The first thing I got there is this form has to come out because they plan on a cast-in-place concrete wall, which the form they have doesn't provide frost wall. So, we changed the design. This is going to be a modular block wall, which only has 14-inch embedment. So we eliminate digging at 4 feet of soil to install a frost wall. The form would have to come out, and basically behind the form we met with conservation. What they suggest us to do is keep the form where it is and move back 1 feet to start the face of the wall. But the form is going to be removed. The soil piles that sit on the wetland is going to be backfilled back on the back side of the wall as the construction move on, and the area that's being filled with the dirt pile over the wetland is going to be restored. And the farm that extend out to the neighboring yard, we understand the contractor didn't know where the property line is. Those are going to be removed and restore the slope.
Okay.
Yeah.
The question I do have in my staff report is receiving the permission from 17 John Paul Circle, so I'd ask that you do that ahead of the July meeting. We have asked the applicant to revise the grading report. In addition to that, staff is looking for a barrier at the top of the retaining wall. In speaking with the building inspector, anything over 4 feet requires some type of protective barrier there, whether it's chain link fence or things of that nature. One other question I have, there's an existing pipe that extends past the graded area, not really located on the plans. Staff's noticed it in the field, and just curious, where's that pipe coming from? What does it serve, and what's the plan in relation to the wall?
We are going to actually investigate that pipe because I think some of the erosion might be a problem with the pipe being broken. That pipe is actually the roof drain that they pick up all the gutters. I suspect maybe some of the pipe are broken and that carrying some of the dirt off the pipe and creating the sinkhole on the driveway. So that would be investigating any problem of the fix.
Okay. And then quickly, on the plan provided, there's a catch basin just before the existing shed. Do you know where that leads to?
Excuse me?
There's a catch basin located at the end of the driveway before the existing shed. It's
Yes.
shown on your survey plan and it's shown on the grading plan.
Yes, that's going to be investigated altogether with where the pipe is. I believe they all tie together.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right. Are there any members that have any questions? Member Strelazzi?
None at this time.
Member Grove? Member Kent?
Just one question. The proximity to the railroad bed track, does that have any impact on this matter at all?
No, the work is very far away from the railroad bed.
Okay.
Basically, it's just working on the wall itself. No work is proposed on further away from the wetland towards the railroad bed.
Okay. Thank you.
And I do have one question with the board. I know one of the comments is that the plan supposed to be prepared in NAVD 88. If I would like to ask the board if that we can ask for a waiver for that section because the survey itself is prepared in town of Braintree base. So we'll have to get back to the surveyor to adjust all the datum. I just want to know if the board can entertain that.
Yes.
Through Madam Chair, we're asking that it be done in NAVD 88. We don't utilize Town of Braintree datum, and that's reflected within Article 12 as well.
Okay, so it doesn't hurt to ask.
Okay. And did this replace in total the timber retaining wall that's mentioned in some of the materials, or is this bigger or smaller, or what?
Yes, since we are doing the concrete block wall, the timber wall is going to deteriorate over time, so we want to take at this time, want to replace that wall
Okay,
with the same material.
right. Okay, I think you answered some of my other questions during what you had mentioned. Member McCamey, did you have any questions?
This looks like quite a mess, you know. And
I tried to fix the mess.
just like the chair was just asking, how did we get here? What happened? Did it just deteriorate? Did the previous owner do something? Was it just constructed this way? I mean,
well, we have no idea.
Okay.
I guess we have to investigate that pipe to see if there's any, sign of broken pipe that, over time, the soil get into the pipe and create hollow spot under the driveway or so whatnot. But the owner saw the soil erosion. You see one of the trees actually leaning like this. So he's just trying to fix the problem. He lived there for a few years, and they have language barrier as well.
okay, thank you. I noticed somebody in the audience raised their hand. If you want to make a comment, please come to the mic. No, you have to come to the mic.
And introduce yourself by name and address, please.
David Iantosca, 17 John Paul Circle. Just a quick question.
Yes, sir, could you just speak directly into the microphone because we're being filmed? You can
how,
move the mic.
How far will the wall return, the end of the wall, and how far off will it be from my property line?
Which side are you at?
I'm on the left-hand side.
This side?
So currently the footing is on my property line. So I'm to the left of the driveway, their driveway.
So the footing is about 7-8 feet into your property line right now?
Yes.
So the new wall where it's turned around is going to be at least 3 feet off your property line.
Okay, and that's going to return?
Return towards the uphill.
Okay.
Just to, make enough room to return and make the grade.
Okay. All right. I was just, and how tall, I haven't seen the plan yet, so I'm just curious, how tall is that wall going to be?
It starts from roughly about 3.5 feet and get higher to about 8 feet.
Okay. Okay.
Just follow the natural grade.
And the other thing I'd like to point out, I would like to make sure if they need my permission, I just want to put this on record, that the owner should be cleaning along the property line where they threw a lot of all their blocks and all their debris and everything else onto my property, and I had mentioned that to the building inspector. So that's going to be a condition of if I have to give my consent on that.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and that, yes, this is, if you'd like to come up, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Joanne Farrington, 665 Commercial Street. I'm actually on the other side, and there is some woods, maybe 10, 15 feet of woods in between my house and their backyard. So I just wanted to know how far
This side.
Yes, I'm right here. That's me. So is any of this woods in my backyard going to get disturbed?
No, we're not proposing to cut any trees down.
It's really bushes and shrubs
Yeah.
right there. It's messy, but I
And
want
also,
it to remain.
I think it's a whole row of evergreen trees.
Right,
And
and
we're
then,
staying away from that.
but back here, it goes further back, right?
There's no plan on going any further than where.
Okay, so when I look in my backyard and I see this,
Yeah.
it's not going to approach any closer to those woods.
No, they are going to
towards
be
me.
working on the same line.
Okay.
Of this, actually a foot back the wall is going to be a foot back to the slope. And these areas.
Sorry, just to interrupt for 1 minute. These meetings are super awkward because everything's supposed to go through the board, and it makes it hard to have a discussion, and I recognize that. So I'm trying to just make it where you can get your questions answered a little bit easier, but it is really hard for the minutes to pick up the back and forth. And what I might suggest, because we are getting continued to July, and you both live on the other side of this property, is that, Mr. Mann, if you get their contact information after this hearing and then reach out directly so that they can get their questions answered, because I do think that is going to be important to the board at the next meeting to understand what impacts have on the property there.
Yeah, more than happy
Thank
to
you.
give you guys a-
Thank you. Okay, so with that, if we don't have any other questions, we'll take a motion to continue to the July 9th meeting.
So move.
Motion by member Kent, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by member Strelazzi, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'll give you a minute, thank you.
Madam Chair, can we be efficient and continue 238, 310 Grove Street?
Oh, that is a great suggestion. Okay, so.
July 9th, Madam
Yes,
Chair.
so we have 238, 310 Grove Street. We'd be looking for a motion to continue that hearing to July 9th without testimony.
Motion.
Motion by member Stolazzi,
Second.
second by member Kent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and the next public hearing on our list for 20 Jensen Farm Road, Planning Board File 2408. Director Santucci Razzi, if you could please read the public notice into the record.
Yes, Madam Chair. Notice is given by the Planning Board under the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 11, and the Braintree Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 135, Articles 5, 6, 7, and 12, that a public hearing will be conducted in Braintree on Tuesday, June 11, 2024. At 7:15 p.m., the Planning Board will consider a grading permit by the applicant, Ronson Lee. The applicant seeks a grading permit for previously completed grading, importing of fill, and the construction of retaining walls, and to permit additional grading, filling, and stormwater improvements. This property is 16,603 square feet and has an address of 20 Jensen Farm Road, is zoned Residence B, and is identified on Assessors Plan 1083 as Plot 26.
All right, thank you. Mr. Mann.
Man from Hardyman Design Group, representing a client at 20 Jensen Farm Road. Just a little background about the projects. The owner of 20 Jensen Farm Road, in conjunction with 30 Jensen Farm Road, they got the Conservation Commission to build a common wall along the property line, but when they do the work, the wall height exceeds what the grading permit allows. So the wall height is around 3 to 4 feet right now. And also he built also a second tier wall up on the top, close to the building, and a patio. So the grading that was done exceed what the grading permit is applicable for. And also on the back here, they do some work to build melon arbor, basically a wood structure with some wire for them to grow melon in that area. And they clear some, they clear the path, put some gravel path just to get access into this growing area. There was plan to put a shed in, but there was stop work by the staff. And so we are back here to ask for a retroactive grading permit to allow the work that was performed. And also, since we are putting the application together, there's proposed patio he would like to finish, and also to put in the proposed shed that where it was printed. again, it's a retroactive application like the previous case. And I understand there are some comments from the staff that probably will continue this to the next hearing. We have some plan work and so forth that need to be addressed. And also some questions about what work was done with permit or without permit that I have to get the information because, again, I got involved when everything is done, so it's just helping the owner to clean the mess up, I would say. With any questions?
Thank you. Director Santucci-Resi, I know you had open questions in your memo. Did you want to touch on any of those now?
Madam Chair, if I may, just quickly. So Kelly and I went out here last summer for 20 Jensen Farm and also 30, which is the next hearing we have. And, you know, we go to a lot of different properties and we see work going on and it makes sense. And then we go to some properties and we're like, what is going on and why and who is responsible for, respectfully, this mess? So she came, you know, at the 6th inning and he's trying to clean this thing up. But, you know, we spent some time out at 20 and respectfully, I'm just really trying to understand what the end game here is for this particular property owner. Removing material against the backfilled foundation. There's a wall there's 2 walls that are actually constructed. One is the one on the common property boundary that looks okay, but portions of it aren't even backfilled. And then there's a second wall on 20 Jensen that already looks like it's sinking and deteriorating. So we want people to improve their properties, we want them to make investments, but we want them to do it responsibly with permits, with review, and with proper engineering drawings. And this just raised a lot of questions. Fortunately or unfortunately, the Conservation Commission wants a lower tier wall that is built essentially on the property line removed. And that wall is comprised of boulders this big to this big. And it's really just, you know, again, try to understand what is the purpose of this and what are you doing and why. And we had a very difficult time piecing that together. More importantly, we need a proper plan and we need a plan. They've imported almost 2,000 yards of material, and there are no different grades shown anywhere on the plan. So some work needs to be done to demonstrate where in fact did that material go. I'm also going to be following up with the building inspector. I know you're going to do some research, Chi, but we know what you're going to find for permits, and that's probably 0. Because I can tell you that one of those walls there would have not been signed off, given just a quick visual of that wall. So we've made some comments. We need some proper plans. There's some mature trees on the site that I think need to be properly handled if they're going to be filled around. This area where the shed is supposedly going, if they're going to level that there, a lot more grading and filling and essentially backfilling of the wall is going to need to take place. There's also an electrical wire that was pulled from somewhere and is daylit in the backyard. There was no permits pulled for that. And then this whole situation with this melon arbor, and it looks like they ran the roof drains all the way from the house out to the back. And just kind of curious, where is that? And then where is this water line, this electrical line? You know, was that installed properly? Is there good cover? Just all of these questions, because that area is really adjacent, very, very close to the wetland area. So we want to make sure that any stormwater that's being, you know, that it was originally probably in dry wells very close, you know, middle of the yard potentially or closer to the structure, to infiltrate is now piped all the way to the rear of the property and being held in a tank. And now when that tank decides to overflow, you know, that's gonna, again, go down this path quote, area that was constructed that needs to be revegetated. So just a lot of questions and really need some help, might be helpful meeting with the property owner, really trying to understand what the end game is here. And then I can talk a little bit more about 30 when we call that hearing. But not the best half-middle job that we've walked into, or the worst. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And you had mentioned the prior Conservation Commission approval. Is that the 2017 reference, the prior plan? Was that in 2017 for the conservation, or when did that?
The original building was around that time, 1719, and we got the as-built plan. That's where we established where the wetland boundary is based on the as-built plan that was provided by the Conservation Commissions. So the plan, I can just highlight it here. The plan is to restore the highlighted area, which is the gravel path right now. The commission like us to remove this wall. I call it a wall, but it is, yeah, you call it a wall, but it's basically just few stones stacked around to delineate the path. So we're going to remove those stones, and we establish some wetland, not wetland, but living flower mix. Just bring that back to nature. Probably bring in, a little bit of loam just to have some planting soil, and then reseed the area. That's part of the conditions we receive from conservations.
All right. Does any other members have questions? Member Sterlasi?
Are all of these, like the walls and all the layout and everything, was that all done by the current owner, or did they inherit any of this?
It was done by the current owner.
Everything was done by the current owner, so they made the mess, so it's their mess. They're not inheriting anything that they're fixing as well.
Yes, but I met with 20 Jensen Farm. I met with 30 Jensen Farm. I met with 40, 50, and 60. And 60 Jensen Farm, we have to go back to conservation of some work they done that, it doesn't trigger the grading permit. We have to go back and ask to file NOI and get some approval. And I talked to every one of those owners. They all told me that the builder who built the house told them, after a couple of years, you do whatever you want. So that's kind of like the story.
Okay. Member Grove? Member Kent? Member McCamey?
That me? Just when you think you hadn't seen anything worse than John Paul Circle, along comes Jensen Farm Road, 20, 30, 40, go up the number list. My suggestion is we don't do anything on this. We make no movement, we take no testimony until the owner comes in and meets with the director, the assistant director, and perhaps the building inspector. If it was me, I would issue penalties, but that's not up to me. So my suggestion is we don't even look at this until they come in. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member McCamey. And this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here on 20 Jensen Farm? Okay. Yeah, I understand a lot of questions that are going on with the property. I guess two of my thoughts are that it seems like the impact, the thing to worry about is the conservation, the wetland area, and the stability of different things that are put on the property, electrical, the structures of the retaining walls, and so forth. So it seems to me that Conservation Commission should be taking the first stab at whether or not this satisfies their concerns, and of course the building department also weighing in on whether or not what needs to be done, if anything, on both of these properties. But it's a little bit different than John Paul, because in that one, it seemed like you clearly had 2 other properties that were implicated. And so, I mean, I understand there's a lot of questions that need to be answered before you come back, but that's just sort of my thoughts on this one. And then when we open the next one, it seems to be the same situation for both of those. But with that, I don't have anything really specific to the application for questions. Did you have anything else that you want to add at this time?
No, Madam Chair. No, I think that was a good summary. It's just, you know, and it's, again, we need to make sure that it's clear what was there and what was actually changed, and we need a plan that reflects that.
For a motion to continue to July 9th. A motion by Member Kent. We have a second? Second by Member Grove. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And we'll move right on to our next one while you're up there. 30 Jensen Farm Road. Director Santucci-Razzi, if you could please read the public notice. Yes.
Excuse me. Notice is given by the Planning Board under the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 11, and the Braintree zoning ordinance, Chapter 135, Articles 5, 6, 7, and 12, that a public hearing would be conducted in Braintree Town Hall on Tuesday, June 11, 2024, at 7:15 p.m. The Planning Board will consider a grading permit by the applicant, Parashama Patel. The applicant seeks a grading permit for previously completed grading, importing of fill, and construction of retaining wall, and to permit additional grading, filling, and stormwater improvements. This property is 20,692 square feet, has an address of 30 Jensen Farm Road, is zoned Residence B, and is identified on Assessors Plan 1083 as Plot 25.
All right, thank you.
For the record, again, my name is Chi-Man from Hardyman Design Group. Again, we are retained by the owner of 30 Jensen Farm Road to file grading permit. Again, number 30 and number 20, they jointly got the conservation approval to work in this area and build the retaining wall. And again, the retaining wall that was built was taller than what it should be. The grading and the grading was exceed what the that trigger a grading permit, put it this way. So we are putting application in for requesting to retroactive approving the grading that's happened on this site. In January, the grading that happened on 30 Jensen Farm Road is limited to area adjacent to the wall. Since we are doing the application, the owner also requested he'd like to do a patio in the back. Flip to the next page. So currently, the area is pretty much just dirt and lawn, and there is I call it more like a ditch. It's supposed to be a bio-retention area, and very similar to many of these houses around here. The builder kind of excavate a hole on the ground, and that was the bio-retention area. So the roof drain currently drain into the bio-retention area. So the owner would like to beautify the area, put a permeable pavers patio in, and what he also like to reconnect the roof drain into 2 cisterns that collect the runoff from the roof, and he can reuse the water for irrigations. And from the From the cistern, it's going to be overflow. When the cistern full, it's going to overflow into flow well, NDS flow well, which is about 30 gallons or so. That has an oven grate on top. So when the cistern full from the roof, it'll overflow through the surface grate and then spill into the permeable pavers area. The permeable paver has a reservoir course about 6 inches or so. So when the rainwater get into the permeable paver is going to be a gap in between. We are going to specify exact products for it. Rainwater will drain through the gap and into the sand filter course, and then the water will be stored into the reservoir course, which consists of 6 inches of crushed stone, 3/4 inch crushed stone that store the water for infiltrations. That's the originally we proposed a Caltech system for the overflow, but Conservation Commission usually their comments back is they don't encourage homeowner to use Caltech, so we changed it to smaller NDS flow well. And they want the opportunity to do the patio and also do some minor grading on the side where they like to create a walkway from the driveway to the back, and also they would like to put a new fence in the whole area, so they have little kids that they worry about leaving them outside and being attacked by wild animals like coyotes and such. So the grading that happened is not as severe as number 20, so it's just the wall height was exceeding what it should be. And also the plan show a dirt pile area. That's the result of the material left over is supposed to be distributed on site to do the final grading, but they got the stop work order, so they leave the pile there, put in the erosion control just to wait until they have a permit before they do all the rest of the restorations.
And I know I forgot to ask this on the other one, but I know you mentioned conservation. What is pending in front of Conservation Commission?
We got the order of conditions last week.
Okay. You did receive it?
Yes.
Okay.
I picked it up, actually, this morning.
Okay.
Along as number 20 Johnson Farm Road as well.
All right. Then are there any, actually, Director Santucci-Reza, do you have anything additional to add?
Just, this one again, we had gone out early, about late summer last year. And again, this particular situation that whoever they hired for the contractor, again, just the plan doesn't even reflect it. This area in the back that says existing stone wall, it's just a pile of some stones and dirt, and that goes all the way along in front of where it says proposed fence, like it goes actually all the way to behind the patio, I mean, there is just piles of fill, not even good fill, just stuff I wouldn't use, tons of rock, broken up, just everywhere. The bioretention area is a hole. There's nothing bioing and retaining it all in there. This one's a little bit more straightforward. Again, we did have quite a few questions in the staff report. And then again, going back to those comments about this wall, and it kind of straddles the property line, and again, it's not done, So they're on the 30 is on the lower side, and then 30 is a little bit higher, but, and... 30 on
the lower side.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So the one that we're talking about now is on the, the wall. They're looking at the entire face of the wall. And, in this particular situation, it's, the yard is in the location of the structure. It's just really tight back there. But the 25 is also, pretty much right there. So there's not a lot of room, and we just want to make sure that we still had some outstanding materials that talked about the cul-de-sac. We need that updated. And then again, just thinking about, you know, we're starting to see, and I'm not sure if the board members and she as well, just more and more erosion, just kind of constantly. So we just want to make sure that overflow, and then I'm guessing those riprap areas are to control the water that doesn't get absorbed by the patio. And then we had a few comments about the side of the patio that's going, I guess that would be 40 Jensen Farm. And that's going to be a decent slope off the side of the patio. So we just want to make sure, again, that that would kind of be in the section where we see a spot grade 128.8, and then the grading around the walkway getting down to that boundary line, that common boundary line. And we just want to make sure that that doesn't get too steep and or create, you know, it looks like that corner is up a little bit higher, but that just, again, you can kind of see, you know, where the concentration points will be. And that's very close to the abutter as well.
The proposed grade is 3-to-1 slope, which is manageable. It's going to be stabilized with salt or almond seed spray. And the steepest area, which you mentioned, is the riprap. That's why we do some riprap treatment to make sure there's no erosion.
All right, thank you.
And
Sorry,
Madam Chair. And just to clarify, a decent amount of the work at 20 was out of the conservation jurisdiction.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Member Sirlazi, any questions? No questions. Member Grove? Member Kent?
No questions.
Member McCamey? Comments? Questions?
Well, I'm hoping that conservation conditions will address many of these issues. Is that fair, Madam Director, or not?
To an extent, yes, they do. What's within their purview, and then
Right.
we'll make sure we address the rest.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I also want to mention that the owner of 30 also, they did file LDA to cut down some trees on the prior work, and they do have permits for those.
Okay, thank you. All right. Yeah, and I don't have any questions on it. You know, I sort of go back and forth on the grading permit because there's certain applications where it really is what I consider a planning and community overview where it's affecting other properties, and then you have situations like this where both property owners are doing things together that affect each of them more than anyone else. But we do have the rule on the books, and so I appreciate you getting the additional information requested so that we can make a decision on those regulations. And I think with that, we'd just be looking for a motion to continue to July 9th.
Motion.
Motion by Member Sirlazi. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Kent. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, now we just need a motion to close our hearing tonight.
So move that.
All right, we have a motion by Member Kent. Do we have a second? Second by Member Grove. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.